What's up, OCs? Welcome back to another episode of Original Copy Podcast with your hostess with the mostest, Dion.
And Joseph.
That almost rhymed. That almost rhymed.
Bars. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Man, so on the agenda today is we probably bounce around a little bit, but we're gonna stay within the parameters of communication. Oh my goodness.
We're going to try to effectively communicate communication.
Right. Articulate our thoughts and make sure that we're understood.
Which at the end of the day is all anybody really wants to be, is understood.
Yep. Yep. Because behind every complaint is a request.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I would say, that I've encountered don't usually understand that.
Okay.
That that if they're communicating with someone and things become sideways, or things go sideways, I should say, that they don't understand that to sift through all the nonsense and the bullshit, it is just, okay, what does this person actually want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they can't effectively tell you, what is this person actually asking of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are their requests? So yeah. And that doesn't necessarily need to happen inside a relationship,
not
friendships, people you just encounter on a daily basis, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
customer service, right?
Yeah.
We tell you.
Mm-hmm.
What you want. So I mean, I guess do you wanna start how you effectively communicate?
Well, I guess just based on like past experiences, I've kind of done a deep journey in what communication actually means. Because I've had like relationships or just any type of encounter before where I understood communication from almost a selfish standpoint. It was what I wanted to be heard saying, and that kind of was the end all be all. And as I went through like the ups and downs when it comes to any type of relationship, I had to start checking myself and be like, okay, are you actively communicating yourself? Like you want this from somebody in any type of dynamic, but are you actually doing it yourself? So in learning from those not so great moments in communication, I had to really set aside and be like, okay, what is the root of conversation for me? What is the root of communication for me?
Yeah.
Because I'm one that I have a very expansive mind, and sometimes it can be hard for me to put into words what I actually want to say, because I have so much that I might want to say at one time. So it's hard to kind of pinpoint in that moment what's the most necessary thing to say.
Yeah.
So I've learned that for me, trying to be as succinct as possible was something that I saw in others that bothered me, because they weren't able to just outright and say it. But looking inward, it was actually something that I struggled with myself. And then later on, I guess recently I've been having conversations and looking at communication in a different way.
How so?
Because I think a lot of people, when they communicate, like you said, it's somebody might want something from you, somebody might need something from you, and that's why they're communicating. But the expectation on the person that is receiving the information is for them to understand,
Right.
for them to grasp what you're saying and kind of follow along with it. But understanding is different for everybody.
Yeah, so I want to tackle that too, because when you're communicating with someone, right? Naturally, you're communicating with people on a daily basis that probably comes from or is around your environment, right? The same environment,
Okay.
per se. So whether it's gender, whether it is race, right? Whether it's creed, or whether it's in the midst of religion, right? If you fly,
Or even
right?
sexuality, like
Or
it's
sexuality.
all, yeah, it's all there.
So when you're communicating with someone and you're trying to you want them to understand what you're saying and what you're talking about, a lot of those barriers, right, are placed and and it's not necessary. It's just who you are, right? Those barriers are because I was reading biases, right? Everybody has personal biases, right? And it's to no fault of your own, right? It's literally how you grew up, what I'm saying, the environment that you
Experience.
grew up in, your experiences. So do you think, like, when you're trying to speak to someone and they're just not understanding it, that do you keep in the back of your mind like, yo, this person, it's because this person doesn't necessarily understand how I'm communicating with them? Because I know you were touching on it a little bit, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I have to self-reflect on like how I'm communicating with this person, but I want them to understand me. However, they probably don't understand me because how I'm talking to them, or the way I'm talking to them, my tone of voice, right? Because I can be, for myself, I know I can be sometimes very stern with a lot of things that I say, and my mannerisms.
Mm-hmm.
However, it can probably, I'm the way I'm looking at it is like, well, yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm so like hardcore per se. It's just that I want to be direct and
Mm-hmm.
straightforward with you, so you can understand in the simplest way possible. But how, but because of who that person is that I'm speaking with, or in a moment, it can be misconstrued.
Mm-hmm.
The misconception of how a person, like, it's like just going back to like how a person looks. I'm saying, the gender, the sexuality, and things like that. So like I just try to, like, I wanted to really like dig deep into, all right, when you say understand, do you think that those barriers are alive?
I would say yes, but I also am now kind of thinking of understanding a little differently. Um, because everybody doesn't have to understand the same. Nobody is automatically going to think the same. There might be
Right,
similarities,
right.
and things that you can equate with one another, but understanding means different things and shows itself differently to everybody.
Mm.
Um, and there are all kinds of things out there that can factor into understanding, like you were saying, like uh, personal biases, all of these other things, lack of a common experience. But it also could be just your natural mental pathology. And it's just a mental state of them understanding themselves, which I kind of equate to like understanding being different. Like there are levels to understanding, and I
Or
think it's
being,
a
or I don't mean to cut you off, but
no, no,
I
go.
won't even just go as far as being different. You're just being an original,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're being yourself, right?
authentic yourself.
Yeah,
Yes.
you are who you are. So I different is something that I've learned over the years does not have the same meaning when you're speaking to amongst like people. Like, yeah, you probably could throw the term around, or the word around per se. Like, I know, like, just coming from where I come from, you say, oh yeah, I'm cut from a different breed, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a, you know, yeah, a different type of dude. But all in all, like, I'm just me,
Yeah.
right? I am who I am. So yeah, I definitely, like, just when I hear the word different, I like to, like, put in perspective, like, with myself often, like, like, they aren't different, they're themselves,
Mm-hmm.
they're an original
Mm-hmm.
copy of themselves, if you will. And you're seeing, for the most part, like, you're never really going to see who someone truly is unless you spend like 50 years with them and never left the house type. But yeah.
But seeing them and their authenticity, and you not necessarily having that same experience, takes it to the next step when it comes to dynamics and communication and relationships, because
Mm.
you have to be willing to understand them.
Yep.
Like you have to be in a place to say to yourself that, okay, I may not speak the same language as you, but am I willing to learn how to speak that language in order to effectively communicate with you in the ways that you need? And that's something that I feel like not all the time we're too apt to do right off the bat,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times I feel like we've been conditioned to have communication just be so black and white.
Those barriers, because
Yes.
you communicate in a plethora of ways,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a beautiful thing too. Like, once I realized that, so, like, my mom, is a twin.
Okay.
She's a identical twin, but she has 12, no, yeah, 12 siblings, right? And I think it was like she has like six sisters. There's like seven girls, eight girls, so seven sisters. And the youngest, my aunt, is deaf.
Okay.
So all our lives, how we communicated with her is through sign language,
Okay.
right? We communicated with her, even though she's not too keen on the same sounds that we're keen on. However, she understood vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
We understood vibration. We had to understand vibrations earlier to effectively communicate with her, right? So it's the same thing as if you were helping a blind cross the street, right? You know, if they're asking you questions, right, about where they're at or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what they're doing and stuff, you want the the way you can effectively communicate is you have to be very, very descriptive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be, you can be very creative as well, but it's a new language that you're speaking,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and then just also, you know, silence, right? Being able to hold your tongue, being able to understand yourself and those personal biases that you may have obtained over the years and through your experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, and when you meet a person, you know, who maybe doesn't speak the same language or doesn't come from where you come from, so they don't understand the slang, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, working at I used to work in a hospital and I was a security guard. So I'm around a lot of people, you know, all walks of life. You know, same thing with the army, right? And where I was, it was a lot of Spanish speaking
Okay.
people, right? So now I have to learn how to communicate. My first language is English, it's not Spanish. So
Mm-hmm.
now I got to effectively communicate with them if I need them to do something. Um, but yeah, if I need them to do something that I've asked, you know, so like, okay, cool. I can learn little phrases and little words and stuff like that. But I have to, it's other ways to communicate during like body language and,
Yeah.
you know, tone of voice,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that plays a huge part in effective communicating as well.
But also touching on what you were saying about silence.
Yeah.
Um, Silence is okay with communication. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, like to be still and receive and to speak out of a necessity from the person that you're communicating with to hear a response in which they are asking for and not necessarily just responding to be heard.
Right.
Like the silence is good to listen. Like people say, listen with the intent to hear, not to speak.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that's a big part in communication as well, like the willingness to not have to say anything at all and to just be in a space where you can just receive and to
Digest
listen.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Digest everything that's being told to you because you never know because you just speaking over a person or trying to speak through a person and through their words, you might be cutting down critical information that you are
Mm-hmm.
gaining
Mm-hmm.
that can help your person be a better person. And I had to learn that and needed to learn that fairly quickly because a lot of relationships got ruined because
Mm-hmm.
of it.
And they still do.
Yeah,
They absolutely still
absolutely.
do.
Because if you're not willing to sit up there and actually understand that person and understand, you know, exactly what you effectively want from any type of relationship,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it goes through communication, and it's not going to work if you cannot sit there and listen, comprehend, and be attentive in the moment because you can't, you know, it's very hard. I try to do it, you know, multitask while you're having a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's fairly challenging. You're just not going to receive all the information that you need to.
You're taking it for face value. You're not
Yeah.
really digesting it.
Right. Right. Right.
Because
Yeah.
like we were saying on the ride over, like this cell phone of mine
Yeah.
is like my kryptonite. Like I if I'm on it, I'm on it. But if I'm not, I'm not.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part because like if we're in the middle of a conversation and I get sidetracked and I'm doing something, I'm doing that thing and then I'm like, oh crap.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a conversation. So it's either you try to pick up the conversation where you left off or you're just like enough time has passed. Let me just try to see if we
Yeah.
can just move on to the next topic. But I had to understand with the way I received and felt the most grounded when it came to conversation is practicing what I wanted in response. So, like, if I am asking you to at least communicate why the communication like fell off or why there was a lapse in communication, then I got to do the same damn thing because it's
Absolutely, yeah.
like I can't just expect somebody to alter their ways to communicate the way that I would like it to flow if I'm not doing the same in return. So like I'm so bad with my phone and I'm trying to be better, but I also just don't like to be on my phone unless I'm on TikTok. And then 6 hours
I think
later,
we're all in that
6 hours
wormhole.
later, I'm like, why do I have a headache?
Yeah, we're
Oh,
all in
because I've
that
been
wormhole.
staring at my screen for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I've scrolled past the woman telling me I've been like viewing for too
Yeah,
long.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like, shut your mouth. Mind your business.
You ever get the guy with the stop sign?
Yep.
Hey, stop.
And I'm like, goodbye.
Yeah, so I just to piggyback off of that is a phrase that I loved that I use quite frequently now, and it's if you want change, be change, right?
Absolutely.
So like one of my biggest aches, just within relationships or just ships in general, is I would love to be heard because I feel like I have something effective to say. So don't talk while I'm talking. I would not like for you to talk while I'm talking. That like seriously, like it grinds my gears, and it lets me know that you're not paying attention. So I already clocked myself out, right? I've already already gone to like in my brain. I'm on to the next thought, and that has ruined relationships because I was doing it as well, right? If I felt like I felt attacked or during an argument, or if I felt like there was critical information during like in the workplace and I'm giving it and um, you're not hearing me or anything like that, or I'm not I don't feel like I'm effectively communicating. I'm going to respond while you are talking, and try to get my point across.
Yeah.
And that right there, I know for a fact, I played the role, and in ruining maybe some relationships, or just causing unneeded stress during a conversation that then needed to be had when all I had to do was just, okay, cool, I got it. I'm gonna compartmentalize that. I'm gonna bank that, or I'm gonna put a rebuttal on that. However, this is something that I wanted to address, right? So, and then learning too, because when you sit there and you're internalizing everything that's being said, you're digesting everything that's being said, and you're able to start compartmentalizing the things that are being spoken about. Uh, Especially when people go on a tangent, you want to hit every button. Okay, cool. You start thinking about, all right, that's how I'm gonna respond to that. I'm gonna bank that. That's how I respond to that, right? And I tried that. Cool. Sometimes I get it off. Sometimes I don't because I miss critical information in between.
Because I was going to challenge that and say,
Yeah.
if you're in that moment and you're thinking about how you're going to respond to certain things, are you truly just digesting?
Listening. Absolutely not.
You're listening with the intent to respond to certain things.
Yep.
And I had to shut myself up from that because I'm the type that I'm right. I'm always right. Even if I'm wrong, I'm right because I can justify and try to prove my point as to why I'm right.
I've been told that way too many times. That's who I am.
but I had to just, okay, you might not be right.
Right,
you don't love to say that out loud. You don't love to acknowledge that about yourself, but you might not be right. So just listen to everything that this person has to say and then move forward from there. But another kind of thought that I was having is also like when it comes to communicating, I've had experiences where emotions led the conversation. For the most part, I've had feedback before that I'm very analytical and structured in how I speak, because for me, I like to speak from a place of fact when I'm having a conversation with somebody, because the thing is, fact can be disputed, feeling can't. You can't tell me that my feelings are wrong because I'm feeling them. So in terms of communication, I work to get to the point where I try never to communicate out of emotion or feeling, because I feel like in terms of dynamics, that's a lot of time what causes conversations to get misconstrued, because you're listening to the emotion behind what I'm saying. You're not listening to the words in which
Mm-hmm.
are coming out. So I had to work on not receiving people's emotions as their intent, and really strip that away and say,
Yeah.
okay, I know this is a heated moment. You're in a place where you're feeling emotional, but let me listen to the words that you're saying, not the delivery in which it's coming at me.
Gotcha. I 100% agree, because I legit, whenever I'm speaking to a person, and for whatever reason the situation is just not in my favor,
Mm-hmm.
you know I be- I tend to lean towards being a little angry, which tends to sharpen
Mm-hmm.
my words,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now my vocabulary is such to whereas in, okay, now I'm talking directly to you, and if things were to start to go left, right, you will notice with my posture, you will
Mm-hmm.
notice with my tone
Mm-hmm.
and my delivery, right, is now very, very powerful, right,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense,
Intentionally powerful, though.
intentionally powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanna propose, right, because you've been in the acting space for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So through your time, while you're perfecting characters or perfecting um, these roles, are you taught a certain way how to communicate? Like, I feel like that's I like I'm intrigued by that,
Okay.
because I want to know how does that, if you are, how does that affect your everyday life with conversations.
You are kind of taught to let the words be what communicates.
Mm.
So like when you're learning any show, any script or anything, the words have to come first. You typically don't really start acting anything until the words are so in your body that you can regurgitate them in your sleep.
Mm.
Because at that point, once you know what the words are, you can figure out where the person is when they're saying it, how they're thinking while they're saying it, the atmosphere around them while they're saying it, because all of these things factor into how we might say something, how we might react to something. Because as humans, like, we don't know what we're going to say before we say it, but we kind of do. Like, something will be a catalyst for us to have a thought, which could cause us to have a feeling, which causes us to have a reaction and say something. So it's kind of like that when in terms of acting. But I think it's more so just for me personally with that experience, just keeping up with just trying to be as grounded and as neutral as possible.
I've tried my best to try to internalize my emotion, and like try to speak from a position of fact and logic,
Mm-hmm.
and not from emotion, because I noticed that I can get a lot of things done, a lot of things accomplished when I speak from that position.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something, it is really something to say about that, because it's times where I've been in the midst of a conversation, and like my emotions will start to rise,
Mm-hmm.
but in the midst of the conversation, like my once I start to listen to what the requests are,
Mm-hmm.
um it topsy turvies. Like my emotions go to the bottom, while it's like, okay, cool, now I'm actually using my brain,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm able to effectively communicate and effectively either help this person or help myself get what I need and what I
Mm-hmm.
want. And it works out better for both parties, because
Mm-hmm.
now you've had an experience that one is benefiting you and whomever else, and now you actually have an experience that you can build a library on, with how to communicate. Because when you communicate, and you're essentially either giving out information, or you want to receive it to
Mm-hmm.
do or do whatever you want or get whatever you want, and vice versa, right? To help someone out. So it is extremely crucial, just even with the generation that's under us, that's coming up, to you want to be able to learn how to effectively articulate yourself in all, like, in all rooms.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Because I'm
I
petty. I am
I
petty,
I would second that.
and it
I would
fills my
second that.
soul with
You petty.
joy. Like that, it is so bad. Like I am one of the pettiest people. Yes, I claim that. Um, where and it can be a gift or a curse. There are situations where some people just get a
Hmm.
little sprinkle of petty just to humble them a little bit.
Yeah.
But I have to be careful because, like you said, I can articulate myself very well, but when the petty joins onto it, oh, I'm out for blood.
Yeah.
It's intentional at that point. Like I want
Yeah.
you to hurt because of whatever I'm feeling. So that's why I have to really practice that, taking the emotion out, because I can do a lot of damage intentionally
Hmm.
to somebody verbally, and that's not what I want. And I've had a lot of, let's call them ping pong matches, of me just knocking it back and forth because I'm like, okay, I'm being petty to you, but your petty don't level up to my petty, so I'm gonna just keep taking you down. But I want you to still hear what I'm having to say, and that, like, you can't have it
Yeah, you
both
can't.
ways. You can't break somebody down in order to get them to receive what you're saying.
Unless you're in the army.
Intentionally, what? Yeah, yeah.
Unless you're in the army. Let me tell you something about basic training, man. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, it's just never really conducive. So like when it comes to that, like the patience that it takes to effectively communicate is
Hmm.
very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Respect, even in hard times, there could and should still be some type of level of respect, because I try to think of the fact that nobody's perfect.
Hmm.
Nobody's ever
Hmm.
going to 100% say or do the things that are in your mind and heart for them to do. But
Yeah.
where I guess it kind of comes back to understanding is, if everybody understands that nobody is perfect, then the pressure of having to be perfect is removed, and then that takes away a lot of the emotion in which we might feel when we communicate, or leading with emotion, because we're not speaking from a place of wanting to either defend ourselves or make an argument, but just open and just fluid communication. Because I'm one that believes that most everything can be solved with effective communication and time. Like you were saying, like everybody speaks their own language. Even if they speak the same language, it's
Hmm.
not going to be the same as the person next to you. Like we speak two different languages, like based on our upbringing, just who we are as people. Like we know the same language, but our accents are different in a sense. Like we can understand each other, but there's still a level of understanding that we have to have between us because of our experiences and everything. And I think
Yeah.
so often, even when it comes to like racially motivated things that happen in this country, like it's a lack of communication and understanding. Like
Yeah.
the understanding is so lacking in all forms of communication.
Varying um, complexities that conversation and understanding how to converse
Mm-hmm.
is very, very it's unique. And it's, and like we were like both touched on, it's to oneself. Like, like
Mm-hmm.
it is, you know, how you communicate, how you articulate is important. It really is. It really is. I know, people like, they wanna speak well, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta speaking well per se. Like, it might sound fancy, right? But you just gotta really just command the room, whatever
Mm-hmm.
room you're in, right?
Because I can code switch in a second.
Yeah.
Like I can sound like a learned gentleman, or I can just sound like I'm hanging out with my friends. But either way, I'm still effectively communicating my point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the words you use; it's how you use them. I think I can tell from experience that both of us enjoy challenging. And
Yeah,
it's not even necessarily a negative. It can be perceived as such,
absolutely.
but challenging to the point of trying to get an understanding,
Yeah.
because like we said, like that's one of the biggest things in terms of communication is understanding.
You're analyzing, people as they communicate, even if you're walking on the street, you're walking on the sidewalk in the street or whatever the case may be, and you hear like a couple, right, communicating or attempting to communicate, right? Do you pick up any type of like shoot, what do you call those? Like key notes, key phrases, key sounds that you maybe like take back and internalize, like, oh wow, like maybe I've said that and that's how that sounds out loud without me saying it. That makes sense.
It does, and I would like to say that yes, I do that, but no. If
Yeah.
I like, if I'm being honest, I try to
Yeah.
mind my business unless I can't.
Right, right, right.
But I have had that moment in hearing things that I say in real time.
Gotcha.
So
Um,
I've definitely said things, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I hear how that sounds. I hear how it came out.
mm,
I acknowledge where I'm at while I'm saying it, but don't read the emotion behind it or what I'm saying. Read the words that I'm actually saying. Like, here's
yeah.
the actual
Yep.
intent, not necessarily. Don't focus on the delivery. And that brings us back to what we were saying about earlier. But yeah, like I've definitely caught myself in real time or like right after a conversation happened and replayed it in my head, and I'm like, okay, I acknowledge how I could have said that differently.
Oh man.
I acknowledge why that person reacted the way I did, because in the
Mm-hmm.
moment, that is my truth, but my truth doesn't mean it's the only truth.
Yeah.
And like really reflecting on that and having to humble myself and say, okay, I'm sorry.
I've
Like
done
I
that.
did not effectively communicate what the intent
Mm-hmm.
was behind what I was saying. I did give you the emotion behind what I was feeling. Although it doesn't take away from the fact that I did feel that way and I might still feel this way. I should not have let the emotion lead the conversation and kind of taint it in the way that you received it.
That is like I've done that so many times, and I think with the both of us, right, having multiple years in customer service, we have that
Too
opportunity.
many.
We have those opportunities to like embellish all of that, like
Mm-hmm.
just package. And I've taken, like, even after the conversation is over, I've taken that, maybe I'm taking that back home where I'm like replaying it in my head as I'm replaying my day, and I'm going like, okay, now I'm a lot calmer maybe in this situation right now. um I probably could have said this differently,
Mm-hmm. You ain't had to
right?
chop them people up like that.
Yeah,
Like one of those.
yeah,
Like
yeah. You
you ain't
like,
had to chop them up
even
like that.
like like for the example, for the lady a couple weekends ago who race
Mm-hmm.
was 2 races away,
Mm-hmm.
right? As time went past, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I was frustrated, because she wasn't understanding the
Mm-hmm.
information I was giving her, and I wasn't allowing her to speak her truth and understand her frustration, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't sift through her words and really grasp in the very first instance on what her request was, right, and what was bothering her. So, and it just lays down a bigger issue for the company that we work for, and what I'm saying, the process of the enjoyment that we offer,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, coming back to that, just accommodating her, right, giving great customer service, and but talking to her afterwards, right, before she enjoyed the service that we provided, um it was eye opening again to me, and just learn, like, understanding and learning. Hey, I'm still learning, right? These are still
Mm-hmm.
experiences that I'm having, and I'm probably not the most effective at uh, communicating, and what, I'm not saying communicating, but I'm probably not the most effective with dealing with situations of that magnitude, on the spot, because I led with my emotions and not with logic.
Well, see, I tried to lead with logic,
Yeah, and she
and
I ticked her off already. So she was yeah.
and she was going to get ticked off
Yeah. And then
because the
yeah.
petty was creeping up.
And you know, and it was called for, you know,
Mm-hmm.
at every moment of that conversation. But the second conversation that I had with her, you know, I realized, I said, okay, now that I'm a lot more calmer, she's calmer, you know, and we both apologize. So
I ain't get no apology because she was nasty.
so you know, so we start to understand each other, right? And then she told me something that I don't think was, I didn't expect it, right? And she told me, she says, okay, I can tell by just looking at you where you're from. She didn't say it in those words per se, but she just said, like, you know what I'm saying, like your aura that you gave and how your posture was in that moment, like I pretty much, I know who you are. And that's not, for me growing to from who I was, that's not who I wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
known as,
Mm-hmm. Or
right?
recognized
Or
for.
recognized for, right? Because when I look in the mirror, I'm a totally different person than whom I was.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, like, I like that, those links that, you know, that I keep inside my head when I'm replaying my day, and specifically about that day. So it's like, oh wow, like cool. But that makes me more of an effective leader as well, right? Just being tasked to be a leader of men and women is just a huge and unique responsibility that you know, it takes a lot of self-discovery. It takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
self-discovery, because in order to lead somebody, you gotta first know how to lead yourself, right? Put
Mm-hmm.
yourself in a position to win. And I'm able to, you know, with the people that we work with, I'm able to put them in positions to win by just giving them everyday life experiences
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, can help nurture their brain. So now they start to open up and see different. Now they're able to communicate with the customers in a more effective way and get a lot out of them and a lot out of themselves, because now they're starting to like, oh wow, cool. So now that I did that, you know what I'm saying, I've gotten this, right? And they just continue to elevate. So, you know, we out here giving back to the youth.
I mean,
Right.
and they are the youth.
Very much so.
Jesus.
Very, very, very much so. I call myself uh me and my son's mom was talking and have a conversation. She asked me a question on my opinion on something, and I said, it's mid. She goes, what? What's that? Right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it's mid. It's like, you know, it's meh. She's like, okay, all right, don't know what that means. And I'm like, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
might not know exactly, what I'm saying either. But it's the youth,
Yep.
the
And we are
youth and they slang.
surrounded by them.
Yeah, so
Jesus.
but it's all good though, you know. I mean, I think for all of us in this world, you know, we have to be able to. I would love for us to be able to understand, but try our best to understand before we get riled up,
Mm-hmm.
before we lace an opinion, and before we just give rebuttals that
Mm-hmm.
maybe weren't called for.
But I did have something else that I wanted to say, like
Yeah.
something that has helped me in terms of getting to the point that I can listen without the intent to feel the need to respond. And it's three P's. It's patience, having the patience to be in the moment with the person,
Mm.
having perspective of where this person is coming from,
Mm.
and then the last P is purpose. Like, what is the purpose of this conversation?
Mm.
Because if you understand the purpose of where they're coming from, you can use that to help get to a solution of where you want to go.
Mm. I like that. I like that a lot. I like that a lot because I like so because it's essentially you being prepared to succeed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I it's another another quote that I love to I have it like pinned as like my like a pinned tweet, but If you fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
Okay.
And I love taking that with me in everything that I do because it is so universal. So you going into a conversation, being prepared, and not maybe just not necessarily just you pertaining to the subject matter of the
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but you being able to get the most out of that conversation with those three P's is like skyrocket the success factor of getting to a solution,
Mm-hmm.
which whatever that may be.
Because it's not just active; it's also passive.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
because you can have all of those things, receiving information and also giving information.
yeah.
So it's necessary on both sides to have patience. It's necessary on both sides to have perspective, and it's necessary on both sides to understand the purpose of what you're communicating.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. I I don't think I might have not, or probably I probably done it subconsciously, going into a conversation, and then not understanding exactly or phrase it and that with that terminology. But I'm going to now because I like the way it's set up. I like the way you set
Hmm.
that up. I like the way you tee that up, and um, it makes more for me to understand how to be prepared
Hmm.
within a conversation.
And it takes the pressure off of a situation,
Yeah.
because if you're not going in with preconceived notions of anything,
Mm-hmm.
and like, and I'm gonna say it again, and you have the patience to hear what is going on,
Yeah.
then you can have the understanding that comes with the purpose and the perspective. But the patience has to come first. Like, you have to be in a space that you're willing to give that energy to somebody
Yeah.
or receive that energy selflessly. Like, it can't be with ulterior motives, it can't be with an expectation. It just has to be that you're in the space that you're willing to just communicate and understand.
I think I do. I have a caveat though. I do want to know because it works well for us
Hmm.
because we're in a space where we communicate with tons of people,
That is true. That
right?
is
So
true.
we're open to dialogue. But how does that how does that dynamic work for someone who says like maybe they're in the back of a supermarket and they're the butcher, right? There isn't that much customer service that's going on unless you come out, you're putting your meats away, and someone is asking you, okay, what's this cut? I mean, what's this cut, right? Or it's someone just who's just not in any type of like customer service type of a role
Well, I
at that
wouldn't say
moment.
it's necessarily just for like customer service. It's for every type of interaction. You can have those three P's with your children. You can have
Mm.
those three P's with your parents, with your spouse, like with your friends. Like, I think it's very conducive to all forms of communication.
Got you. Right, 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 right.
Because I think our generation is one where I feel like, in terms of, and I mean, I ain't got no kids right now, but I feel like when I do, I'll also be on board with this. But I feel like our generation is one that's really into effective communication with their children,
Mm-hmm.
and not just having it be like your parent says that's it, but being in a space
Okay.
where you can actually communicate with your
Mm-hmm.
child. And I'll say, I feel like a lot of people have issues with being able to communicate, and it could spawn from how generations before us were raised. A
Yeah.
lot of times we are raised to be seen and not heard, like spoke when spoken to. Like, this is uh like, adults have the final say, and people learn to suppress the act of communicating. So by the time they are in their adult life, they don't know how to effectively communicate because they've not had the examples or the experience to do so in their formative years. So now they're going back and deconstructing all of these things that have told them that they can't communicate, and they have to learn how to communicate. And I think that the three P's in particular will work for them, because I was one that didn't really communicate most of my life. Like, outside of expression on stage, like, I didn't talk. I didn't talk to anybody. Like I didn't express what I wanted. I didn't express what I needed. It was just whatever was handed to me or spoken to me was what it was.
Mm.
And this is like I love my parents dearly, but I think with the military background and like kind of what you were alluding to, there is this level of you get commands, you follow the commands. There is no back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
What is said, and that's it. Whether you have gripes about it or not, you're not here because I'm necessarily itching to hear what you have to say. You're here because I'm giving you a task or a job to do, and you got to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not exactly how it was growing
Right,
up,
right,
but I'm
right.
just saying. But there was a time that I didn't know how to communicate, whether it be good or bad, because me expressing anything was so foreign to me.
Mm.
And I think that's that with experiences in past relationships shaped me to get to the point that I may have felt so low in terms of myself when communicating that I couldn't express anything and I would shut down. Because, like I said, I finally got to the point that I could visualize my thoughts and then get to the point where I could verbalize them. But for a long time, like I said, since I wasn't able to verbalize thoughts in communication, imagery was the only thing that I really had. So I developed the imagery and that aspect of my thought process so much more than I did the verbal and articulate aspect of it. And that came with me being patient with myself and understanding, like we were saying earlier, that the differences or what's not normal is okay, and it's actually normal to not be normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is
Mm-hmm.
the most normal thing to be. Like as
Let's
if
normalize not being normal.
yes, um weird is the new normal. Like it really needs to be, because if you're trying to be normal, then you're assimilating to something that somebody else has already done,
Right.
and I ain't got time for that.
No.
So like, and
Sorry.
yeah, yeah, it's just Beyonce got
Sorry,
24
not
hours in
sorry.
a day, and not one of them is spent on being like somebody else.
Yeah, no. Sorry, not sorry.
Mm-mm.
We are the originals. And
Hello.
and it's just that is what it is. You know what I'm saying? You take it or leave it, right? You take it or leave it. And I think over these last few years that I've embraced, that, um, I've met a plethora of interesting, very
Mm-hmm.
cool people, and understanding like, wow, like that's cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you like watching you be who you are is exciting, right? And it makes me, a lot more comfortable to
Mm-hmm.
be who I am. So I do think, with us being, being effective communicators, it is
And working on it every day.
working on it every day. It's essential. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Absolutely.
100% essential. It will make for it will lay down an easier roadmap for you as you continue to grow and and get older, right? So for those who are our age and younger or even older, right? Just learning how to communicate within yourself, and then how to articulate that outwards to the world. It will legit make a lot of times easier, so much easier. When you're talking to a person, you able to express yourself and be
Mm-hmm.
heard is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
You being able to understand someone and be the one to hear them
Mm-hmm.
is a beautiful thing, because uh, as you're being receptive and understanding, and when it's that time for a response, right? Because when people look at other people, they want to know if they're compassionate or not, right? Because we're human beings, right? We naturally you know we learn emotions at two,
Mm-hmm.
3 years old, right? And how to control those emotions at 4 and 5 years old, right? Tell what's what, right? So just from an endearing aspect, from an aspect of relationships, it's so endearing to have a person sit across from you and be like, man, I understand, I got you, like, and It's a beautiful thing, and I have those conversations daily with people, and whether or not you know what I'm saying they're in your life for that day, if they're in your life for a couple of months or a season or whatever. Uh, I think it's man, it's a unique space to be a part of for sure.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say one more thing on communicating. It's also not just for other people. You have to be able to communicate with yourself.
Oh yeah.
And I think when people actually communicate with themselves, and it could be in many forms, it could be writing in a journal, it could be taking voice notes, it could be just like taking time to meditate in a sense. But like the communication between oneself helps and will get you in a place that you can be more prepared to communicate with others. Because if you work on the skills at home with yourself, you'll be more prepared in yourself to be able to communicate with other people.
Yep.
Because unless you know how you communicate, how you want to communicate, how you think when you communicate, all of these other things, you won't be able to effectively communicate with others.
Right.
You can't be finding it out and receiving or giving at the same time.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. It's not going to benefit yourself.
It won't benefit the situation.
Yeah, at all. At all. Absolutely not. Anything else?
No, I was going to say, and with that, we have communicated with you guys. We have attempted to effectively communicate with you guys today. And I'm glad that you guys can hear us, but also see us.
Yeah.
It's my apologies for the last episode. I had some issues with my video footage, but we are hopefully back showing our faces regularly. We're still getting some things together, so our home may change soon, but we still getting some things together. So
more of an ambience.
Some ambience in these streets.
Something that where we can effectively continue to communicate with you guys, so you guys can understand, and digest, with your eyes, as well as with your ears, and internalize that. So we're looking, still in search of a home.
Yeah.
With some very meaningful decor and all of that good stuff. But we're still working on, like we said, like during this podcast, we're still working on us. We're still working on being as true to ourselves,
absolutely,
as possible, right? Because that is the most important part, and what you guys are going to get out of this, along with the experiences that we share and the knowledge that we share. Yeah, so we're gonna always be authentic. That's just, that ain't gonna change.
Because I can't be anybody but me.
You know what I'm saying?
There's only one of me, and I'm pretty damn great.
So So with that being said, all your OCs out there, you know what I'm saying, your original copies. All right. I love you guys. Yo, shout out to everybody. Everybody. Yes. I don't mean to generalize it, but shout out to everybody who's listened to the podcast already,
giving
feedback, enjoyed it, and what they critiques that we may have gotten. We appreciate that, because we're still, like we said, we're growing, right? We still want to become more effective communicators. Right.
And you guys are helping us with that by communicating yourselves.
Right.
So it all ties together.
Yeah.
It's just one big old communication community.
So it's definitely a great time. So hopefully, we continue to stay on schedule, and you guys continue to take this journey with us. All right.
We out.